Nearly started talking without unmuting myself then. Hello, everybody. I'm back. It's good to be back with a panel as good as this and Stu. But welcome to Off United. Welcome to Last Word. I thought what we talk about today is how good our season's gone, the great form we're in, and the fact that we're going to win the league. So I don't know if anyone's got any thoughts on that, but, you know, we're doing great this year. Sorry for being so red as well. I'm very sweaty because I don't know if anyone is watching overseas, but Manchester seems to be the hottest place in the world at the minute. But yeah, so let's get into it then. I'm kind of just gonna. I want everyone to get loads of comments in tonight. Get onto YouTube, like the video, comment. I'm sure everyone's got something to say about why we are so shit. But yeah, get in the comments, let us know. I'm going to come to Stu first because I've actually done loads of research. It took me 30 seconds. I've got loads of shit to say about the Glazers. I've got loads of shit to say about the game yesterday. Funnily enough, I didn't even watch the game yesterday, but because I was out, I wasn't at the pub to watch it for the first time in a long time. So, yeah, Stu, what did you make of that yesterday? And everyone else get involved as well, obviously. Ton, I know you'll probably dominate anyway, like you always do. But Stu, what do you reckon, mate?
Well, you didn't miss a lot. We didn't play particularly well. We didn't start well. We didn't end well. We didn't do anything well. But you know, everybody had a bit of a meltdown yesterday. The whole fan base had a meltdown. Gary Neville had a meltdown. Jamie Redknapp had a meltdown.
Jamie Redknapp can fuck off, by the way.
Yeah, he had a meltdown, didn't he? And the thing about it is football's fickle. Football fans are fickle. The game is fickle. 7 days is a long time in football, and I wouldn't be surprised if we don't actually start to turn our season around come Monday night against Liverpool. And the reason I say that is that everybody's expecting us to lose that game. Everyone's expecting us to get absolutely, you know.
Can I jump in, Stu?
Yeah, go ahead.
Jump in.
Yeah.
I don't think that game happens.
Well, I think you might be right. I think that game might get called off. But I'll tell you, look, I've been involved in plenty of matches where we started the season pretty poor, and the favourites for the title, or one of the favourites for the title, has come onto our turf, and we've beaten them, and we've been absolutely mauled the first 2 games. Football is very, very strange, and I think as much as we're right to be angry, as much as we're right to be annoyed, as much as we're right to malign the players and malign the owners, etc., 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 and we're all right to do that. Every single one of us is certainly entitled to do that. There are times in football, and there are times in every walk of life where surprises can happen. And the thing about football is it just takes something to click you into gear. And once that gear is selected and you start to move, it's amazing what it can do. Look, I'm not saying that anything miraculous will happen between now and Monday night. And I tend to agree with you, Cal. I don't think that game's going to go ahead. I think you're going to see a lot of Glazer panic buying this week. I think we'll stump up the money for Frankie de Jong, which I wouldn't do, by the way. I wouldn't pay this extra 17 million. And I think you'll probably see 2 or 3 players come in. Now, whether they're in time to play Liverpool or not, I don't know. But going back to everything yesterday was about individual errors, absolutely everything. And unfortunately, our man David De Gea, who was, people have backed and backed and backed and backed and backed, and me and you, Cal, have been talking about it for 12 months, is coming to fruition. Maguire was lambasted again yesterday. Crikey. I mean, he had an okay game. He played no worse or no better than anyone else on that pitch. People have got to stop looking and demonising individual players because it's not helpful. You've got to start looking and realising that football is a team game, and 11 players take that pitch at any one time, and it isn't just down to one particular individual. So, look, I probably a little bit upbeat, which is you're all looking at me a little bit surprised, but I've been around football a long time, and I've seen it, and just something could click this week, and we could absolutely, if the game goes ahead, we could turn Liverpool over Monday. So let's just think of that side.
Can I jump in and just say,
Yeah, I'm done. I'm done. Yeah, I'm done. Marcus, go for it.
I don't think you're wrong in that sense, because I did put out a tweet earlier and I said, we will eventually win games. We're not going to lose every single game this season. That's absolutely ridiculous. And for me, it will be interesting to see what people's reaction is when we do start losing, because I genuinely believe that the match-going fans are the lifeblood of this football club, and they have the power to push this ownership out. If any of us fans have power, they have the most power, because what they do will impact the ownership the most. And whatever happens in that Liverpool game, for me, it's about what happens after that. Do people continue to focus on the real issue at this club, or do we just go back to focusing on individual players again? If we do play well and we do miraculously get a good result that nobody expects, do people start saying things like, oh, you see, I told you McTominay wasn't that bad, or this player wasn't that bad, or you see, this guy's the glue? And it's like, people fall for this trap all the time. I even saw someone who put a tweet out, posted a picture of Martial and was like, the glue. And I was like, oh, here we go again. Here we go again. So let me guess. If Martial played yesterday against Brentford, we don't get beat 4-0. Suddenly, everything's fine. It's like, people in this fan base, they never learn, man. They never learn. And I hope that, even though sometimes it feels like fake outrage, I hope that the outrage yesterday was not fake. I hope that people are genuinely united and they can see what's actually going on at this football club. I went on a bit of a rant yesterday on my personal channel about not wanting to blame individual players, because I agree with Stu 100%. I think it's a waste of time. We know what the issues are in this team. We've been over it 1,000 times. We all sound like broken record players. It would be easy to sit here and talk about Luke Shaw, having an awful game, Marcus Rashford having an awful game. It doesn't solve anything for me. And I'm glad everybody seems to have woken up, but let's see how long it lasts, man. That's all I've got to say on it.
Can I piggyback on that? Yeah,
Go on.
Go on, Colin. I jumped in a couple of spaces yesterday, and I hear people moaning about this player, that player. I was like, really? You want to moan about players? Really? Right now, you want to moan about players? Do you not see the problem? It's the collective. It's not the players. You can moan about the players and whatever and go on about them, but unfortunately, a big portion of this squad, they're not actively Man United players, whether people like it or not. And then on top of that, they're not even cut out to be Ten Hag sort of type of players. And that's why I've always said, and I said this far back in January, and there's a lot of people that can back me up on this. I said, if you get Ten Hag, you need to back him with his players. Otherwise, get Pochettino. If you're not going to back Ten Hag, get Pochettino, because he's got experience working with a jigsaw. Right? So if the Glazers ain't going to get money out of their arse, get their hands out their arse to back the manager, to get the right profile players, because that's very important for this sort of manager, right? It's like Luis Enrique. You can't bring Luis Enrique in to work with this group of players, whether people like it or not. It's not going to happen. And really and truly, the manager should have a budget just like what Chelsea are working with. But we don't, because why? Our owners. That's people can say about this and this, what would that player, but unfortunately, what really needed to happen, whether people like it or not, is something like Ralph said. Yeah, 7 to 10 players. And that's what I said. I said, you bring Ten Hag. I said it ages ago, 6 to 7 players. You need that. I said it on this channel. You need at least 6, 7 players of his players to throw into that squad. And don't forget to change the mentality, culture in that dressing room. But, our owners,
Can I just jump in? Because I saw a comment there from Speaking Facts, and this is the problem. This is the problem.
Yeah,
people talking about why are we talking about Ollie? Why, honestly, why are we talking about Ollie in the context of him being a manager? You can't sit here with a straight face.
Do you know what? I've been gone for 4 weeks. 4 weeks, right? And already someone's commented something that pissed me off. Honestly, what a stupid comment. Right.
No, because how can you look at anyone with a straight face and say you genuinely believe it's 100% the manager's fault that some of these players here? We know that a lot of these signings were sanctioned by the board. So whether it was Oli or Mourinho or LVG or now Erik Ten Hag, I think people need to wake up and realize that a lot of these signings are not who the manager actually wanted. You can't keep blaming managers for the squads that have been built. And by the way, a lot of signings in that team, are not were not signed on Ole Gunnar Solskjaer anyways. There's a lot of players who played under Jose Mourinho who are still there. Eric Bailly is one that comes to mind immediately, right?
Absolutely.
So I just don't get this, and people are always trying to get one up on each other in the fan base. It's wasted energy. it's wasted energy. Like, who cares? Even let's just pretend it was Ole Gunnar Solskjaer signings and people were happy with that. Who cares? He's gone anyways. He's gone anyway. So like, I just don't get this, man.
Yeah.
Bringing it up at this point in time is a waste of time. But on Mr. Ton's point, like, you're 100% spot on about Ten Hag not getting his players. And the funny thing is, I was actually thinking about this yesterday. Like, Martinez, I think, is a great signing, but he wanted Timber. He wanted Timber. And I almost forgot because I was excited to see Martinez play, but he actually wanted Timber. So all the people complaining about Martinez's height, technically, it's not Ten Hag's first priority, you know? So it's just, he hasn't gotten De Jong yet. He didn't get Nunes, obviously, because he went to Liverpool. So even Erik Ten Hag this early on is
also Anthony. Don't forget Anthony as well.
Yeah, you know? So people need to wake up and realize, man, that it's beyond the coaches. And I saw quite a lot of people, and even I said this, so I'll hold my hands up. Even I said this last week, right? I saw a lot of people saying Erik Ten Hag shouldn't have started certain players. And whilst I agree to a certain extent that he's not doing himself any favors by starting the likes of Fred, and even though McTominay didn't start yesterday, he started against Brighton. Let's be real. You cannot look at me with a straight face.
Marcus.
Yep.
Not in a minute. I'll let you finish.
Oh yeah. I was gonna say you cannot look at me with a straight face and say if we play Garner, if we play Garnacho, if we play Mabry, if we play Ethan Laird at right back, Iqbal and Savage in the midfield, you cannot look at me with a straight face and say we still won't get piped by Liverpool, right? Like, so I think this idea of Erik Ten Hag starting players that, you know, people want to see, it sounds great, it makes him a cult hero, but actually it doesn't make a difference. People need to realize the squad as a whole is just not good enough. And whilst I agree that Iqbal and Savage would be better than Scott McTominay and Fred in the midfield, they're not ready for men's football. So, you know, Ten Hag is damned if he does and he's damned if he doesn't.
Do you know what, right? So you're right there. I do agree with you, but I did want to make a little point about it. So, yeah, Garner could play and Iqbal and all these play, right? The fact that these young lads are having to come in and play such a pivotal role in the side is because of the lack of investment and the poor recruitment over the last however many years, right? Everyone in the fan base knows that there's certain players there that shouldn't be there. But it's almost hit a point now where I'm not that bothered. I'm really not that bothered that the likes of McTominay and Fred play every week or Maguire plays every week, because these players who, whether you agree or not, aren't good enough, are being put in a spotlight and a limelight every single week that they play at Old Trafford and every single week that they play all over the world for Man United. They are being put in a position where they are getting dog's abuse because, through no fault of their own, whether it's through effort or ability, they are having abuse after abuse after abuse. They are being put in a position that they shouldn't be put in because there's nobody to replace them. People abuse Scott McTominay and Fred for just not being good enough, right? But I don't really ever see McTominay and Fred not work hard. You might disagree, but I don't necessarily see them not work hard. I just don't think they're that good. And if that's the case, then fine. But through lack of investment and terrible recruitment and complete mismanagement, they're being left in that spotlight to play every week. And they're being slaughtered from pundits, from fans, from fans in the, well, not even fans in the stadium, because they've always got the backs. But it's beyond abuse now for some of these players. They are being put in a spotlight that they should be taken away from. But because we aren't getting any new signings, they're getting abuse constantly. Now, on another point, let's say that these players do get taken out and you bring in young lads who aren't ready for senior men's football. They're then being put in that position. They're being put on the position because tits online start being horrible and abusing them. It's not right. It's rotten from the top to the bottom. Now, there's a huge rant you can have. And Mr. Ton, never say get rid of Ten Hag and get Pochettino in ever again. Because that...
I didn't say get rid of Ten Hag. That's not what I said. I said...
What did you say then?
I said in January, what I said on Spaces is that if you're going to get Ten Hag, if the club wants Ten Hag, you have to back him because he has a very distinctive brand of football. So you need a certain profile player.
Okay, I'll let you off.
If you're not going to back him, you get Pochettino, who has experience of working with sort of jigsaw of players. Do you know what I mean? Different profiles and getting them to work. That's what I was basically saying. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay,
Right.
that's actually a good point. John, I know you're going to want to speak.
Yeah.
Something. You're going to
No,
have to put in.
Yeah, sorry, I do agree with all the points that are said. I've made a point like from last week about like what you mentioned, Cal, about the dogs abuse players getting all that. A lot of these players are probably afraid of playing for United, afraid of making a mistake because they know they'll get abuse online. And I just made the point a few days ago, like, as it really comes to this. I mean, we might not like certain players in the team and that, but as we know, it's a far bigger issue now. It's systemic and it doesn't necessarily matter who the manager is and all that. And can I also just point out, it might not be a popular opinion, but some of these players are better than what they're showing at the moment. And I think it's a confidence thing and all that. And we touched upon with the the Liverpool game. What is it that's causing these bad results, particularly away from home? If you look back at last season, a lot of the time it's conceding the first goal and then conceding the second goal, and then our heads drop. What happens if we score the first goal in the game? Eventually we'll score the first goal in the game. It might come against Liverpool potentially. I think if you were to go 1-0 up against Liverpool, let's say next week, the crowd will be up and they'll be supporting, and that might give the team a bit more confidence in that.
We are going to discuss the Liverpool game later, by the way, because
So
me and Stu clearly got some thoughts on that.
Yeah, absolutely. And but my point is that you can't. We all know what the main problem is, the owners, and something has to give. It's on point in that regard. Obviously, we know Ten Hag's been let down the transfer market and that, but while you're not happy with the team at the moment for performances, obviously Ten Hag made the players run the distance, which Brentford obviously did 13.8 kilometres more than us, and he obviously put them through punishment drills for that today. But I just think that you got to try and look at the wider picture and just remember that this is still your team. You might not be happy with the individuals, performances and that, but they're still your team. You still got to support them, even if you're angry and all that. And I just think we got some push towards that and stop the abuse that's going. Criticise them if they don't play well, but let's not, start abusing them and all that, because that takes it too far.
Can I just jump on that and also say, like, for me, obviously, I never really get involved with abuse and all of that. Like, if anybody reads my tweets or watches my videos, I very rarely go and rant about individual players. And even when I do, it's always about their footballing ability. It's never to do with anything personal.
There's always a fine line, though. Sorry to interrupt, mate. There is a fine line, though, isn't there? There's nothing wrong with calling out individual players. I've never said there's anything wrong with that in the past.
Yeah.
But the fine line is where you start personally abusing these players.
Yeah,
100%. You know my feelings on certain people, right?
100%.
But that's where the fine line comes, and that's where so much toxicity comes into the fan base, and that's why I disagree with it so much. But ultimately, there is a fine line there that sometimes gets overstepped. I think it tends to get overstepped a lot more just after a game's happened, because obviously everyone's a lot more reactive to what's just happened. I mean, I've been guilty of it in the past where I've just ranted on Twitter about whatever, and most of the stuff I was saying didn't make sense. It's probably like most of the time, to be fair, but nothing was funny then, Stu. But there is a fine line.
I'm sure it was.
Go on, carry on, Mark, because I get your point though.
No, yeah. So just on your point, there definitely is a responsibility on creators to make sure that they toe that line as best as they can. And I think with social media, especially Twitter, because you have such a limited amount of characters and Twitter's so reactionary, a lot of people, have gone a bit too far with that. So I completely get what you're saying. And just on the point about supporting players, for me, I've kind of reached the point where I almost don't care anymore, right? Like, for good and for bad, right? So I won't abuse players, but at the same time, I'm not going to cheer them on, because I feel like they don't care, some of them. Not all of them, but some of them, it feels like they don't care. When I watch my team 4-0 down against Brentford and they're not tracking back, they're not showing emotion, they're not showing fight, I just can't bring myself to actually be like, you know what, I'm going to try and look for the positive in this. I'm going to try cheer. I'm just not that type of person. And I feel like a lot of these players, through no fault of their own, are still at this club, still getting chance after chance that they don't deserve. And I think it's time for them to go. And I just can't be asked anymore. There's a handful of players that I still do like in that squad because they're either new signings or they've only been here for a year. But a lot of them, man, they need to go. They need to go. And I think as much as people have different views on how to support the club, you know, that's just mine.
The thing is, though, Marcus, is that's been the biggest issue, isn't it? Is player retention. We've kept Dross. You know, Phil Jones is approaching his 11th season at the club. David De Gea is in his 11th season of the club. Fred's in season 4. McTominay, okay, he came through the youth ranks. But there are, by season 7, is it? Something along those lines. You know, there's a long, long time. All these players that have hardly got a kick and are still picking up 150, 200 grand a week or whatever. And the reason we haven't been able to invest in the first team squad is because of these types of players. I think Dallow's been with us for something like 7 years,
2018.
Yeah. What, Dallow? Was he 2018, was he? So, it's a long time, but I read loads of stuff in the press. I mean, John was talking about Ten Hag made him run 13.8 kilometres. Waste of fucking time, that is. If that was the case today, it was a complete waste of time.
It did make me laugh, though.
It made me laugh. I mean, fucking hell,
And do you know what, Stu? I'd have made him run fucking 3 times that.
Yeah, somebody's made that up somewhere along the line. The best thing that he could have done yesterday, Ten Hag, was not say a word in the dressing room and not say a fucking word today. Leave it till Monday. Sometimes you got to walk away from football. You got to analyse it, and you've got to really think about what you're going to say and how you're going to be able to affect those players come Monday morning. Dragging them in today. I'm not saying give them a pass, but dragging them in today, to run this 13.8 or whatever it was, and it was quite funny. Yeah, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. Footballers don't respond to that, especially our players, because they really are like a bunch of women, And I'm not having to go at the women's game because I tell you what, the Lionesses would kick our ass at the minute because of the way the Lionesses play football, the way that they control games, the way that they've got that aggression in them. We don't control games of football. We don't have any aggression. We don't do anything that constitutes an elite footballer, an elite player, an elite club. So we've had these players on for such a long time. We haven't moved them out. We can't bring players in. Manchester United should not be having Diogo Dalot as a right back.
Ernst and Medicide shouldn't be having Diogo Dalot as a fucking right back.
Exactly.
Honestly, I liked him when he came, but he's just not good enough, and that is the fucking fine line of abuse. He's not good enough.
He shouldn't be playing at left back, Cal.
And he shouldn't. Yeah. So right, look, I do want to slightly move on and sort of move it to a little bit actually focused on the ownership now and forget the game yesterday. I know we have mentioned the Glazers quite a bit, but I do want to kind of bring the whole conversation to just them and everything around them and what's happened at the club for so long. I'm sure you all know your stuff. You've obviously all done your research around it and stuff. But I did a little sort of research about it. Like I said, it took me 30 seconds because it's fucking everywhere at the minute. So, the first thing I want to say is it's really bothering me that there are still some pundits out there that are genuinely saying the words, well, they've spent loads of money. They haven't spent a penny. They have not spent a penny at Man United. The money that's been spent at Man United for players or for whatever that they've spent it on is Man United's money that they've generated. Shubs Ali, I'll come to that later. We're going to speak about the Liverpool game later. But thanks for all your comments, guys. Do keep them coming in. Make sure you like the video as well over on YouTube as well. Be very appreciative. It looks like we've got about 35 people watching, so try and give us about 15, 20 likes. That'd be very good of you. So the Glazers bought... I've even made notes and everything. So Glazers bought United in 2005. They borrowed £600 million to do so. That kind of buyout of a football club nowadays wouldn't be allowed. It'd be illegal. There is a current clause in the Chelsea ownership where you can't... I think it's called the anti-Glazer ownership. You can't... I think, Ton, you might know a bit more about it, to be fair, but I don't believe you can take dividends out for 10 years and you can't borrow money to buy a football club. There's a
well, are you saying currently, right now?
Currently, or they're looking into it, I think. Where
No, they've already done it. So basically, with Chelsea, they actually put something in them. If I'm correct, someone said this to me, a Glazers clause, literally where they.
Yeah,
I'm being
actually.
serious. This is
Is
Yeah,
that
no,
true?
no.
Okay,
You're right.
I-
You're right.
It's
Yeah,
already
so I
you
am
can't.
right.
So the
Okay,
way they bought the club, someone couldn't do that now, basically.
yeah,
It'd be
right.
funny if they did call in the document Glazer clause.
I'm almost convinced they did. To be fair.
I reckon they probably did. But there seems to be a lot going over a lot of people's heads. And I genuinely think it seems to be the same culprits. It's the likes of Jamie Redknapp and everyone on TalkSport who doesn't have a fucking clue what they're on about. And I do apologise for swearing, but it's really hurt me this week. £122 million in dividends since 2016. Dividends to me have always, and from what I've understood dividends to be, is it's something that you pay shareholders who are within a business who have made a massive profit. You'll see it at the likes of Openreach at the moment, or because obviously I know they've voted to strike. British Gas have done the same. Shell, BP, they've all made massive profit, which is a disgrace, by the way. But you can thank the Tories for that. And they've all given massive dividends to shareholders. Whereas our owners, who were operating a club that last year operated at a loss, took, I think it was £20 million in dividends. You know, we all thought there was some kind of overhaul in the football structure this summer. It's quite clear that that's not happened because we're still scrambling for players now and there's only 16 days of the window left. It seems to be the case that the Glazers are quite clearly still in the final charge, so that they've got that final decision. I can't understand how that's still the case, considering they all live in Florida, and trying to get things over the line, it seems to be taking ages because they still live in Florida. Hence all this happening, it ends up setting up managers to fail. Now, I know somebody mentioned Ollie before, but you can go all the way back to David Moyes. Obviously, ultimately, he probably wasn't good enough. Then you had Louis van Gaal, who, again, probably deserved to go in terms of the football. But, you know, you can turn around and say he was backed. Well, the club backed him. The owners didn't. Jose Mourinho, obviously, he said a lot during his time at the club. I still think people give him a lot of credit that he probably doesn't deserve when he says things, because I think, don't forget, Jose Mourinho always looks after Jose Mourinho. And my personal favourite, Solskjaer, was also thrown under the bus. They were all thrown under the bus. And now it seems that it's happening to Ten Hag, a guy that is quite clearly an elite manager who's being utterly shafted. Again, it's ridiculous. No money has come in from has gone into the club from the owners, yet they've taken millions and millions out in dividends and loan repayments and debt repayments. But to go back to the debt repayment, the debt is still the exact same now than it was when the United were bought in 2005. I go back to the football structure that's supposedly been overhauled under their leadership. Well, how do you have an overhaul of a football structure and come to the conclusion that Marko Arnautovic, a man that's been accused of racism and xenophobia so many times throughout his career, should be a Man United target? I think that was the final straw probably for a lot of people. I would have given my season ticket back if I signed him. The fact that Rabiot is also a man who was quite literally almost had his contract terminated at Juventus only a couple of weeks ago, and now we're signing him for 17 million euros. What, the money that you could pay for De Jong? Now, whether you think it's right or wrong to pay that for De Jong, but you could just pay that for De Jong, surely. It's something that's going to go on for as long as we let it, and I think if the momentum that I feel like we've got with a lot of mainstream media attention coming into the fold at the moment, I think we could really have something. Now, the whole Michael Knighton thing, I completely think is bull, to be honest. We're all so desperate for a new owner that we're just desperately looking for anybody. I genuinely believe maybe ignore him for a little bit, especially now. Anyone have any thoughts? Anyone genuinely have anything to say on the Glazers? Does anyone think the Glazers are a good ownership model? I'd love to see you in the comments so I can block you and tell you not to watch this channel anymore.
It's not a good ownership model, but back in the day, when we were stupid enough to float the club on the stock market, we became fair game, and that's the problem. When you become fair game, you're fair game to absolutely anybody who can find a way to buy you. And back then, I think it was once they'd reached the threshold of about 80 or 85% of the shares, everything else was compulsory, including my shares. At the time, my uncle's shares and other family members' shares and friends and family. And so that was the biggest issue, was when we floated. Tottenham floated a couple of years before us and didn't really do any good. I think they floated on the AIM exchange, so it was a lot smaller float, but it didn't work. So we were almost the pioneers of doing it. Manchester United were, and the way that the Glazers did it was perfectly legal at the time, unfortunately, and that's a real issue. I think moving forward, this type of buyout won't ever be able to happen again. Whether you loathe the Glazers or not, they're still probably going to walk away with $2 to $3 billion in their back pocket. And what anybody says about anybody, that is good business by anybody's standards. That's just how it is.
Disagree.
The club.
It's not good business, Jim. That's not $2 to $3 billion is always good money, but it's not good business.
Yeah, but it is for the Glazers. Don't forget, they went in with Zip. Maybe they put $200 million of their own money in. They're walking away with 2 or 3 billion worth of profit. For them, it's great, but it isn't for the club. And the way they've gone about it, they started to build the club brilliantly. But where they made the mistake was they didn't allow the business side to operate separately to the football side. Okay, they should have allowed Richard Arnold and his team, when he was marketing director, which he was the real push behind getting all these sponsors and making all this money and making all this turnover. They should have allowed that to do, and then they should have built the football side better than what they did. And that's the issue. It really is a problem that there wasn't. If they combined, if they'd left the two together, two separately, put a holding company in place, which I think was Red Football Group, my memory serves me correctly, Manchester United would be one of the biggest and most profitable football clubs on the planet today if they'd had a football board as well as a commercial board. But they didn't. They allowed our good old friend Ed Woodward to oversee everything. But if they'd left him to the business side and somehow managed to persuade David Gill to stay on, we wouldn't be talking about the Glazers as being a bad owner. We'd be talking about them as being a great owner. But they didn't. So let's be clear. They didn't do any of that. And they've used Manchester United as a cash cow. They've used the brand that is as a cash cow. So they've invested Zip, but they're taking out, as you quite rightly say, Carl, 120 million quid or whatever, about 1.5 billion. Ever since they've owned the club, has been moved out the club. As it goes in the next 2 to 3 years, and I think the Glazers have hit their ceiling now. I think that's it. I think this year, the remainder of this year, is going to be pivotal for the sale of the football club, and I think it will actually happen. Whether it's Michael Knighton or not, I don't know.
It won't be
it probably won't, but I think it will happen. I think the Glazers are suddenly realising that they can't, either they don't understand or don't know how to reignite Manchester United, or they can't reignite Manchester United. It will make of that what you will, but that's the key to it. They can't, so somebody needs to reignite it. It needs a fresh pair of eyes. When you look at what's happening in Chelsea at the minute, that's done by a consortium. Probably some kind of leverage buyout in there somewhere, and there's a couple of venture capitalists involved, so there will be some leverage somewhere. We need to try and avoid that, and I think what Michael Knighton, I will just use him at the minute, Cal, because he's the only serious buyer.
Oh, no, yeah.
His consortium, from what we can gather, is pure money, so there's no leverage in it. Where the issues are is it's the stake each individual has. So if you've put, I don't know, 200 million in it, Cal, and Mr. Tom puts 50 million in it, what's Mr. Tom's value to Manchester United? That's how you've got to look at it with a consortium. You need everybody on the same page. We don't want somebody like Saudi Arabia coming in. We know all of this. We do need somebody like we do need somebody like Sir Jim Ratcliffe, who could probably come in and afford it. But the Glazers are going to hold out for top dollar. Let's be very, very clear about this. They are in the driving seat. It's up to them what they want to sell the club for, and they will hold out for top dollar. So,
can I jump in and just say, I think with regards to that, everything you said is spot on, but I think this is where the fans come in, because correct me if I'm wrong, but TeamViewer have already pulled out. They're not going to renew their contract with Manchester United to sponsor them whenever their current contract
when
runs
it
out.
runs out. When it runs out, yeah.
Yeah, and this is proof that boycotts do work. And when I say boycotts, I'm not talking about the ones outside the stadium. I mean the online reviews and people actually attacking the brand itself. You know, it's clearly worked. And if people somehow were able to unite, put their differences aside in this fan base and come together and actually boycott the club, both financially and in terms of social media, because you can't just do it on social media. Hashtags don't work if you don't pool your money. We can actually make a difference. Eventually, the share prices of Manchester United will plummet. Eventually, Adidas and all the other sponsors will pull out, and the Glazers will have no way of holding this club to ransom because even they will start to lose out on the business end. But it starts with the fans. And again, I'm not telling people how to support their club. I'm asking you to help us get the Glazers out of our club.
Just one thing, Marcus, and I don't.
Yep.
I'm just playing a slightly bit of devil's advocate here, so I'm not saying anything. But the 1958 group, as good as their intentions are, boycotting somebody like Adidas is a complete waste of time. And I say this in all fairness. If I went through my wardrobe today, forget Manchester United kit, I've got loads of Copper Mondial football boots. I've got loads of Adidas tops, t-shirts, etc., etc., etc. It's 750 million quid's a lot of money. Let's be clear about it.
Yeah.
It's a drop in the ocean to Adidas, and it won't as much as I agree with what you're saying.
So what I mean specifically when I say boycott is stop buying the new kits. Stop buying the new Manchester United kits specifically. I'm not talking about Adidas, the brand, as in stop buying Adidas sneakers. No, I'm talking specifically about Manchester United merchandise. That will hurt the Glazers' bottom line. And this is murky territory because I know it's a very sensitive topic. I know, especially for a global fan, you know, I have no leg to stand on in this argument. I know there's fans out there who get very sensitive about this, but it's not about you. It's not about me. It's not about our opinions. It's about the Glazers. Do you want them out? We know what they love. They love money. So pool the money. And with regards to the whole protesting, I know we're going to talk about Liverpool later, but any protest, whether it's Liverpool or games in the future, people need to realize that whether you pull, I don't think the whole thing of pulling your season tickets is relevant if you don't actually walk into the stadium. I think that sends a huge message because people don't realize the implications that has on the Premier League. It is a very bad look on the Premier League if a game goes on and there's no full seats in Old Trafford or like half the seats are empty. Broadcasters don't want that. All the people in suits and ties, forget Manchester United, I'm talking the Premier League now, they don't want that.
100%.
One of the biggest selling points of the Premier League, and trust me when I say this, there's lots of people that I talk to in my home country who say, you know what I love about England? They actually fill out the stadiums because there's so many leagues around the world where we don't fill out stadiums. Like only on derbies do you see a full stadium. That's a huge selling point of the Premier League, how passionate fans are. That's why it's so hard to get a season ticket because everybody is so invested. If just that statement alone, you don't need to cancel your ticket, just don't walk in. Just that statement alone would be monumental. It would be so huge. And I don't think people realize this. And I feel like we are shooting ourselves in the foot. As
they've put places, they've put issues in with that. No, Marcus, you've got to attend a certain amount of games, otherwise your season ticket gets.
So Stu's right. So the thing is, Marcus, you are right. It would send a
great points, by the way.
But it was a good point. But the Man United have realised what's going on here, I think, and they have been quite shrewd with what they've done. Effectively, if you don't use your season ticket or you don't give it back to the club to resell, I can't remember how many it is now, Stu. You probably know better, but
it's 10 games. It's 10 games.
10 games. You get a sanction, and if you repeatedly do it, you effectively have your ticket taken off you. Now, me personally, if I bought a fucking ticket, I should be able to do what the frig I like with that ticket. But apparently, so effectively, it's insane. But I think they've been quite clever, really, United, and gone right. Well, if all these people just don't scan their ticket, and that means we'll just sanction them, and then we'll give it. Then if it keeps happening next year, we'll give it to a season ticket holder who.
But couldn't you be tactically smart with that and then be like, well, I'll go to miss 6 or 7, then go to 3, 4, then miss 6 or 7. Do you know what I mean?
The best thing I think
if it's 10, if the rule is 10, then that's the loophole around it.
No, I think the best loophole would be go in, scan your ticket, and walk straight back out.
No, that's even better. Yeah, no,
Or,
100%.
or go in for a minute and leave. Like, there is a way around it. I'm sure there is.
I think that's what they want.
Things you can do. There is
But
loads of things you can do.
the only thing is that obviously there's people all over, you know what I mean, the country that have season tickets. That's the only thing I'll say.
I mean, there's also people who've traveled from other places of the world. So I mean, it's a very complicated thing to pull off because again, the fan base is so divided, and everybody really cares about themselves. Some people will. I'm sure there's season ticket holders out there who are not even on social media. They couldn't give a toss about protests or anything like that. They just want to watch football and have a good time, you know. So it's a complicated thing, and that's. But I feel like it's possible. I feel like we have to believe it's possible. Yeah. Otherwise, we've already given up. We're basically saying we're happy with not winning.
If I'm honest, obviously the I don't know if everyone saw it. The hashtag empty Old Trafford. I know the guy who started that hashtag.
Yeah, I've seen it. Yeah.
A good power man on Twitter. I'm in a group chat with him. Good power man. But then at the same time,
you don't have pals. Shut up.
So at the same time, though. The problem is, you see, the 1958, they're sort of like against it from what he has shown me. And when I say against it, they like it should be more organized. You don't do it with a hashtag, get people, get this and that. But like, I get all of that. But at the same time, and this is his point because he said it with his own mouth. He respects what they do and the protests they do, but they remain faceless. And 9 times out of 10, them doing that also is because they want to keep their season tickets and everything else. Do you know what I mean? Where he feels like they could do a lot more, as in protest in a bit more aggressive way. Doesn't mean no trash things, but just in a bit more aggressively. And a good example that I was talking to my brother this morning, which is a Liverpool fan, is like you even said he's like you don't need to get rid of your owners and do something like what other clubs have done, like in fact the other fans have done across the world. How they've literally protest outside the stadium, the whole fan base. No one's gone in. Repeatedly, and that's how the owners be like, okay, we got the message loud and clear. You don't want us. Do you know what I mean? That's the problem. It's navigating through that. How to the like what M said. How you got the people from across the world. They want to go to the games. It's like a tourist attraction for them. But you need to understand the only way to get rid of these owners is to make them understand we don't want you. We don't want you here no more.
Ton, mate. I think they know that, though. I think they know that. But
if the stadium's full, they don't know that. That's the part what no one miss. We can say this on Twitter. There can be a hashtag on Instagram or wherever it is, and people talk in their WhatsApp groups, and even Sky Sports talk about it. But as long as that stadium's full and the merch, that doesn't mean nothing. It doesn't. It actually doesn't mean nothing. It happens in any sports. If a basketball arena, because this happened, will know if you watch basketball, if a basketball arena's empty, at the end of that, I'm telling you. They're making trades. They're doing something. When things start getting empty, that's when people start thinking, "Ooh, because it's going to hurt your pocket in the long term. It's going to hurt your pocket," and that's the part where no one's missing there.
I think Marcus made a great point about the Premier League, and I think that's been completely forgotten about or not even thought about. You know, the Premier League are pretty powerful. And I think Marcus is right. If Manchester United disrupted the Premier League in any shape or form, i.e. no fans in the ground or whatever, the Premier League...
Exactly.
What the fuck are we going to do?
And by the way, it only needs to be for one game. Like, you don't need to do it for 10 or however many games. Like, literally, if we did it for the Liverpool game alone, and I'm not saying stop the game from happening, I mean just make sure it's empty seats. Like, so while they're playing, they're just playing in an empty stadium, and obviously the away Liverpool fans.
I think that's a
huge message.
I think, yeah, but I think it's got to be a bit it needs to be more
100%
prepared, I think. And
100%. It can't be done through Twitter.
It can't be. I mean, I don't even think the 58 are backing it. So at this moment, and plus United fans, you know, it's Liverpool, and we've lost 2-2. You know, if there's a game where the fans are going to be in the ground, it's for that Liverpool game in a week's time. So I do think I do sense a bit of momentum behind the scenes. You know, the way. You know, Sky, Cave, and Melissa Ruddy, is it Reddy? She and I think there's something going on behind the scenes. What it is exactly, I don't know. I do agree. I don't think Michael Knight will buy the club. I think at best he's probably a mediator to try and get a few people together. Maybe, you know, comfortable doing it is put their own money in and, try and buy out the Glazers. I don't think there'll be enough money, to, when we talk about infrastructure and investment, they won't have that money. They might potentially have enough money to potentially buy the Glazers off, but then what they might do is take off the Glazers and then maybe pull it out again, and that might attract people like Jim Ratcliffe to buy the club outright so that they can, invest and do everything with it. I suspect
it wouldn't work. That going to buy Manchester United now, you're going to have to demonstrate not only you've got the 3 or 4 billion quid to pay for the club, you've got a further 3 or 4 billion quid to invest. You will have to have that money in escrow. That'll have to be put in escrow before anything gets looked at. So we are going to need, in my humble opinion,
we will, and that's why I think Knighton is hoping that Jim Ratcliffe, someone like that, does come in to help the bid potentially, and I think that's what he's looking out for. And so obviously, I think there might be some money to maybe put a bid in for the Glazers potentially to take the club off them, but I don't think they have enough for for the investment that's going to be required.
You won't be able to do that though, John. That's the thing. You will have to have 4+4.
That's what I mean. Yeah.
You'll have to have at least 4. You'll have to have at least a demonstrable number of 8 billion quid in escrow before anything can happen, because it's not only paying off the Glazers. You've got to redo the stadium. You've got to reinvest in the club as a whole, the structure. You've got Carrington. You've then got to sort the board out. You've got to make sure before anything can happen, before he even attempts a bid, he's got to have the right people in place, ready to go at the drop of a hat. So and don't forget, once the bid's accepted, he can only then do his due diligence. He can't do his due diligence on the club until that. It's going to take. Look, I could be wrong. And I'll be interested to see what the guys in the group chat think. But I think it will take a 4+4 deal, 4 billion to buy, 4 billion to have funds readily available to put the club. It'd be the biggest.
Well, I remember who was it? The Newcastle owners. No one knows if it's true, but it was speculation at the time. They went for us. I think it was it 4 or 6? I think it was apparently rumored to be 4 or 6, and the Glazers wanted 10, Bill. 10, and then that's when they went to Newcastle, if that makes sense. So 10's a lot. they want a lot.
I think the current value it won't go for that, but the current value on the stock exchange is about 1.5, 1.75 billion. Obviously, they'll take a lot more than that.
4 billion. It's a 4 billion.
But basically, it'll take a substantial amount to buy it. But it keeps falling all the time, though, isn't it? So, but now is perhaps the best time for them to go from a financial point of view for themselves.
Well, just a quick side note. I've just spotted that Michael Knighton follows All for United on Twitter. So if you want to come on the channel and we'll have a little word, feel free.
It'd be great to get him on, Carl. It really would. I think
if he sees that,
in fairness, hasn't John Gubber appeared on the channel as well?
I'm not 100% sure, to be fair, mate. I'm sure he has, to be fair. Just a quick note. If you want to come on, we've got plenty of questions for you, so feel free to come on. I do want to move on, though. I am going to bring up a player from yesterday who me and Stu have spoken about many times. How bad was De Gea yesterday? Now, I'm not saying he was the only bad one, but how bad was De Gea yesterday?
It was terrible.
What he's basically saying is me and Stu were completely right.
Well,
I've said multiple times that I think his situation. Look, I like De Gea. I think he's been a good servant. He's been here for a long time. And I don't want to spend too long talking about this, by the way, guys, because I do want to get onto the Liverpool game next week. But was the De Gea situation a bigger problem than a lot wanted to admit? Because I think he should have been one of the first players to have been replaced, whether it's with Henderson or a keeper from elsewhere.
I think it is one of the big ones that. Well, I personally don't think Henderson he's good enough to be number one either. I personally would have put a new keeper.
Did you not see him today? Did you not see him today?
Yeah, I did.
He won the game for Forest. He's won 2 games. Or he's been brilliant.
Well, I think he's more suited to Ten Hag style and that, but I do think you probably need someone a bit better long term. But in my opinion, but the problem is we got so many problems with the team, isn't it? So De Gea is a problem, but you can name 7 or 8 problems on top of that, which some would say might need more urgent attention. But there's without question that we need a new goalkeeper.
I mean, I've been banging on about it for 12 months. Everyone knows I have. So I'm not going to really get into it. But
I'm not going to say anything. I'm going to let you say stuff because I don't need to say it again.
The problem is I've been vilified for it. You know, you don't know what you're talking about. Blah 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 blah. Player of the year. Blah 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 blah. Fuck me. It's football isn't about that. You know, I've told you. Anyway, I've been going on about it for 12 months. I don't need to.
Look, he needs to. For me, I've always said it. He needs to go. But I think where I don't really like anybody in the team. Yeah, so I just put him down the list as priority, but he needs to go. Definitely, it's a tricky one because it's like if you had a ball playing, goalkeeper or better goalkeeper in that situation, one, you wouldn't have Martinez babying him right next to him anyway in that situation, and then because that's what everyone's forgetting. People are actually babying him by being so close to him. That's actually what's happening. We done it with him when under LVG, the same thing. It was Phil Jones and Daley Blind right next to him from goal kick. So you got someone that can play ball there. You're not going to baby him because he's comfortable and competent on the ball. But for me, it's just like we have so many problems in the team. Like it's like, okay, what do we focus our main thing on? And midfield's a problem, left back's a problem, right back's a problem. The forwards a problem, striker a problem. Like, I feel like we have literally so many problems in the team. So it's like, it's just what is probably the manager's priority in his head. It seems like, might be wrong, midfield seems to be his priority this window, if that makes sense, getting that midfield right first. But let's see what happens, man. Like I said, he needs to go, but it's just not a priority for me anyway.
Can I jump in and just say again, like, if by some miracle you walked into my office and I was Manchester United manager and you said I could make 7 signings this summer, right? 7 signings is unrealistic, but let's just say in some dream, like some fantasy world, I could make 7 signings. I agree that De Gea needs to go, but one of them would not be a goalkeeper. 3 of them would be midfielders because I would sign a completely new midfield on top of having Eriksen. I would sign forwards because we need those. We need backup forwards on top of Jadon Sancho. And some people would say Marcus Rashford isn't good enough. Neither is Elanga. Neither is Garnacho. So we probably need 2 left wingers. We don't have a striker, and we won't have one in a year's time anyways because Ronaldo will be gone. Martial's unreliable, so we need 2 strikers. We still need 2 right backs because we don't have 2 right backs who are good enough to play for the club. We don't have a left back. Well, Malacia's there, but nobody really knows if he's going to stay the course. And Luke Shaw ain't good enough, so we still need 2 left backs.
It's so shit in it.
Yeah, so I get what people are saying about De Gea, and I did say in the summer, I can't remember what show it was, but we were talking about transfers on AFU, and I did say, yeah, for me personally, I've defended De Gea, but he's got to go. But again, it's like, I would not sign a new goalkeeper, never in a million years, unless I could make 11 signings, and we're not playing Football Manager. This isn't FIFA. Now, some people might disagree, and rightfully so. In Erik Ten Hag's system, a goalkeeper is very important. So I can see both sides of the coin, but me personally, I'm so fed up of our midfield that I have an agenda against our midfield, and that's where I would start personally.
Well, Rangnick said we needed 10 players. It was right, but you're not going to get them all in one summer, are you?
Yeah, and that's the thing.
As if you have just picked the comment that said you were all right there, Stu. I didn't click that comment. Stu clicked that comment.
I did, but I just think you guys should read it because he's actually vindicating me and you, Carl. He's talking about this sort of the area.
He doesn't say my name though, does he? He only says yours.
He means you as well. He does. He means you. Come on, let me put my arm around you, pal. Come on, man. It does mean you as well. Come on, Apex, tell him you mean him, please.
Yeah.
But no, I just thought he's right though. We've spoken about the area on more than one occasion, until we're blue in the face, Callum. We've been up against it. We've been pushing rocks uphill on that one, for a long, long time. But it's just one of those, isn't it? I did say though that I would have put Henderson in yesterday. I'm not saying that. Sorry, not Henderson. Heaton. Get me words out. I'm not saying we still might have lost the game, but we might have only lost by one or maybe two.
I mean, to be fair, he should have just dropped the whole team anyways off the Brighton. So
we
should have seen Bailey playing. We should have seen Garnacho playing. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna move on, guys, because it's coming up to 11. It's late and I'm really hot. So not hot as in looking, as in I'm really warm.
There you go.
There you go. Thanks, mate. Yeah. So obviously Liverpool are next week. Now I'm not going to preview the game because obviously I know Shoes does his stuff and they'll be talking about it throughout the week. Make sure you stay at AFU. There's loads of new content coming. We'll try not to repeat ourselves too much, but I can gather there's going to be a lot of talk about what's going on. I have got a tan, yeah. I went on a sunbed, amazingly. Yeah, so thanks for noticing, Tyro. Yeah, so I did want to mention the Liverpool game, mainly because I wanted to ask the lads, and this time I'm going to come around the panel. Stu, do you think that game happens?
Yeah, I do. Unfortunately, I think the game goes ahead. And the reason I think it goes ahead is that the Premier League will be meeting tomorrow. And they'll be discussing the weekend's results, etc., like they always do. And they'll be starting at Brentford. They'll be going, we've got problems coming this week. They will know there's going to be problems coming this week. You will find that they will do everything. And this goes back to really what Marcus has got a jump on about the Premier League's fear of Manchester United having an empty ground.
I've got another question for Marcus in a minute, though.
Yeah. So I think the conversation will be centered around how we make sure Manchester United Liverpool goes ahead. Now, if I'm not mistaken, we got the game cancelled last season. Were we not threatened with a 3-point deduction if it happened again, or some kind of sanctions?
They did, and I think it will happen this time because last time they let it go because it was about the Super League. So they were like, "I will allow it this time," but I think this time they will give us a deduction for sure. Yeah,
there was some kind of sanctions, so I think it goes ahead. And look, Cal, I think we could get a result. Now, everyone's pissing themselves laughing now in the group chat. Deluded Man United fan, but I honestly, guys, I've been around football a long time. And something could happen during this week, and because Liverpool have come very, very complacent against us, and we could beat them 1-0. It only needs that off the thigh, off the knee, trip over in the box, and you get a penalty. Providing we don't concede, by the way, we could win. We could win. I'm just saying.
First goal is crucial, I think if you, but yeah, I think you got to try and get some kind of positive result. And let's not forget, they drew away at Fulham last week, didn't they? So they haven't had the best start, have they? So they played Palace, so they'll probably win that. But it's not like they have come out the traps quickly, have they? So it's. You got to get the crowd up, and hopefully we can get a good result.
Go on, Tom. Do you think it's on next week?
I'm 50-50. I think from the fans that I've spoke to, it sounds like it's literally 50-50. There's a lot of fans that want to go to the game and enjoy the game, and then there's others that do want to protest. It is quite 50-50 at the moment. Currently, I have a feeling it's going to go ahead. I'll be honest with you, but like I said, it's 50-50. As for the game itself, I'm not confident. I've not been confident since pre-season. I've said it on the channel. None of the performances in pre-season I've been impressed by. I don't get impressed by scoreline. I look at performances. So and that's why a lot of the fans were getting excited because they saw a nice scoreline, people scoring goals, but weren't watching the tactics and the performance and the things that were an issue, which has become an issue at the start of the season. And I said the two games that worried me were the two pre-season games against Atletico Madrid and Rayo. And I said the intensity. And I think I was going to show Stu. I said the way they pressed us worried me for the start of the season when the other teams are conditioned and how they're going to press us. Both teams have done it to us now. Both teams. That was my concern because these players are just not. They've not been conditioned over the last how many years to play a certain way, and it's obvious. And another thing that worries me, after the first game, the manager came out and then in the press conference in 2 minutes 50 seconds said about players not sticking to the game plan. After the last game as well, same thing. Game plan went in the bin. Game plan this. Players not listening to instructions, making bad decisions. It's the same thing Ralph was saying. They're not listening to my instructions, reverting back to bad habits. That's a big issue then. And I've said this from day one, talking on Twitter, talking on YouTube, whatever. I said a lot of the players, they're just not intelligent enough, and we need more intelligent players. And that's one of the biggest concerns we have at this club. And I will use the word dumb, but not dumb as in real life dumb. Footballing dumb. There's footballing. There's players that need to be, and this is where I'll give Ollie credit because he let them off a leash. You understand? To let them play free, and that's when it comes to instructions. Now it's shown me under Ralph and now Ten Hag, it's like they're limited within themselves with too much tactical instructions, and that's just unfortunately some players can absorb the instructions like a sponge, and some can't. That's just football.
Before I come to the question, what I'll ask you, Marcus, because I want to get it from a bit more of an international point of view. I don't think the game will go ahead. I really believe it. There seems to be a little bit of action. It seems to be that the fan base is quite united at the minute. It's ironic. But it seems to be quite united at the minute, and it seems to be a case that they've mobilised enough where I feel like the momentum has shifted to us. But the question I wanted to ask you, Marcus, is I remember the last time the game got postponed, I was seeing a lot of stuff online, mainly from international fans saying effectively it was selfish because we wanted to watch the game kind of thing. And I'm not saying it was only international fans. There's probably a lot here as well that thought the same. But I understand it from an international fan's point of view because obviously if they don't get the opportunity to come to Old Trafford a lot, they might have to have got up at 3 a.m. in the morning to watch it. So as an international fan, Marcus, do you think the mood will be similar if the game was to be cancelled, or do you think most international fans would understand why we've tried to get the game cancelled?
It's a difficult one to answer, to be honest with you, because
answer it from your point of view. Would you understand why we tried to get it cancelled or postponed or whatever they decide to do?
Yeah, me personally, I would be 100% behind any way of getting the Glazers out. Yeah, any way. So I'm happy. I really, really couldn't be bothered missing one Manchester United game if it brings us one step closer to getting the Glazers out. Like, genuinely, I've got no issues. But from the point of view of international fans, it's hard to answer because a lot of international fans, as I'm sure there are some local fans, are very casual fans. I mean, I've spoken to Manchester United fans, and you talk about the owners, and it's like it's like the lights are on, but nobody's home. It's like there's a couple of slices short of a loaf of bread. You know what I mean? Like, they just don't get it. They don't understand it. They don't look at the club as in depth as somebody who watches them week in, week out. And it's scary, to be honest with you, because, it's almost as if people, and again, through no fault of their own, they just don't see football the same way as us. They don't do their research. They're not so involved with the tactics and the analysis. They can't see that it's the same cycle repeating itself over. There's so many fans that I've spoken to who just want to talk about the manager, just want to blame the players. It's just one result. They don't look at the whole thing. And again, I don't want to stereotype because I know there are certainly fans who go to Old Trafford who think like that as well. So it's really hard to say. All I can say is anybody who's moaning about one game getting cancelled and not looking at the bigger picture, like, yeah, seriously, man, we can't be worrying about those people. There's more important things.
Yeah, I'd like to hope most probably do understand that there is a bigger picture, and the reason why any game now would be postponed or cancelled or for whatever reason doesn't go ahead. I'd like to hope that everyone sees why. But, of course, the problem is we've got such a large fan base from so many different parts of the world. Unfortunately, we're not always going to agree, and I get that. But I think as a majority do need to understand there is a bigger picture here, and that it really does need to happen, I think. And look, United will be taking measures. I mean, last time they ended up putting a big fence around the ground and everything. I reckon if they have to do that,
I think you'll see that
time, so that at least the players can be in the stadium.
The other thing is, Cal, is don't forget the TV rights to the 50 other countries that the Premier League sell it to. It costs the Premier League millions, this does, in terms of not just lost revenue, but money they've got to give back. Then the TV, you know, I as much as I want it, and I do, I think it'd be the best statement ever. I really do. I didn't agree with the last one, as you well know. I didn't agree with the cancellation of the game. But if it's done right, done peaceful, people don't get on the pitch, etc., then great. But I just can't see the Premier League allowing it to happen. I think they'll know, they'll anticipate, and that's my only issue.
Well, yeah. Well, I'm gonna draw it to a close there. It was a bit of a longer show tonight, so thanks for sticking with us. Thanks for. I hope you've all gone to like the video as well. Make sure you subscribe as well if you haven't done already. We do appreciate your support, and it was lovely to be back. I know I've been away for a few weeks, but it feels good to be back. Nice to pretend that we are amazing, even though we're not. Yeah, sorry it was so negative, but unfortunately Man United at the moment are a bit of a very negative topic to speak about. So
what a great comment that is.
Oh, by the way, Cal, how much did you raise for that charity match?
Oh, yeah. So I haven't got an official number yet, but I will update. I think we're on for a good amount anyway at the minute.
Did you score?
Did I? I played left back, for God's sake, for 20 minutes. So no, I did not score. I did okay though. It was a warm day. No, it was a great day. It was dead emotional, and everyone was really supportive and stuff. So it was great. Really proud of everyone from that day anyway. Yeah. But I will update. I'll speak to Ben when it's all come through as well, and do a final tweet and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, make sure you're all liking the video. Make sure you're subscribing. Thanks for joining us tonight. And we shall see you, I believe, tomorrow. There's another show. Stu, is that right?
Yeah, I'm not quite sure who's doing it. It's the
I think it's Reese's show, so I'm not sure who's on it yet, but we'll keep you updated as the day goes on tomorrow. Thanks for joining us, everyone. Like I say, sorry for being so negative, but it's the way the club's gone at the minute.
We're going to win the league.
Tactical special will be.
That's Sam who lost our first 2 league games of the season.
I was promoting my tactical special then. Quite tactical special. Myself and Abdel and a guest will be reviewing the Liverpool game. I'm not quite sure when we're recording that, so just watch out for Twitter, and we'll keep you in the loop on that one.
Aye. Thanks for joining us, everyone. Thanks to the panel here as well. Make sure you check out their stuff as well. The Twitters are all linked there, so check them out. I know Marcus has got his own channel as well, so check his out. I've got a blog, unitedroad.com, if you want to read that as well. So, yeah, thanks for joining us, everyone, and we will see you very soon.